Hi guys, girls and non-binds, welcome back to my channel. I am Leah Solmers. Here is the first video in my how to draw tutorial series. So drawing 101, the basics. You will need a pencil and some paper. Nothing fancy. If you've got lined paper, start with that. Anything that you can kind of draw on, apart from like walls, unless it washes off, I don't know. A pencil. I use a mechanical pencil, I have done for many years. It saves the whole thing of sharpening a pencil. And I don't know, I find them a little bit more comfortable than wooden pencils. I think because the tubing is a little bit thicker, like a pen, so it's a little bit more comfortable to hold. Ideally, you want a pencil that is kind of as wide as your face. Secondly, paper. So on my second camera, just tapping the sketch pad. Whatever you are using to draw, to learn, just use it. Drawing 101, if you were to look around you at the world around you, or the room that you're in, or wherever you are, the world is made up of a series of shapes. So it's always important to kind of know the basic shapes. Basic shapes are circle, a square or rectangle, triangle. Those are the basic shapes. Those are the core shapes that you can find in the world around you. I'm just looking at DVD case. The DVD case, that is a rectangle. If you were to add some lines like that, it just makes it a bit more 3D. That looks more like a VHS, doesn't it? For all you 90s, 80s and before the age of digitalness. It looks like a VHS. So a triangle, where would you find a triangle? Well, if we were to do a basic cone like that, a rectangle, add some lines. Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like a dodgy looking ice cream. I don't think I'd eat that. That looks very plastic. Yeah, I mean, that cone shape is a triangle. The ice cream, that would be kind of a circle. And then flake, if you like flakes in your ice cream, that would be a rectangle. Yeah, I mean, that's kind of the basics of drawing. It's learning the shapes that are around you. Next principle of drawing is points of light. Now, if you were to look around the room or wherever you are, try and identify where the points of light are. So just looking around me, my ring light is a point of light. My room light is a point of light. I've also got a point of light from laptop as well. Those are points of light. This helps in drawing 3D objects. So if we were to take those basic shapes again, and say our point of light was from here, so our light source is here. Let's just light. If that was shining that way across the square, the shadow would fall here. So if that's on a flat surface even, shadow would be here, you know, and that just makes it a bit more 3D. Same principle again with the ball. If we were to take that light and shine it on the ball, the shadow falls to this side. So that's just the basics of yeah. And again for the triangle, points of light would be on that side, so we can shade in bottom of that triangle. And that's kind of how you bring out points of light in a drawing. If we were to make an object 3D, so say that's square, let's make that 3D. So all we do is drag back the corners, add another vertical line and then a horizontal line, and that kind of makes a bit of a box shape. You can go a bit see-through if you want to, just to make it look glass or yeah, see-through. So if we were to take that point of light on that, so let's bring those lines down. I'm drawing at an angle, so that's why my lines aren't exactly straight. So the points of light would hit the top of that box and not the bottom. The method that I'm using at the minute is called cross hatching, One of my favourite artists is actually Da Vinci. Not so much for his paintings, like his paintings are amazing, like everything he did was amazing to be honest, but I loved his sketches. I remember I bought a book of his art and it had like a series of his sketches. This is, I could have been in school when I bought it, and I noticed like the cross-hatching technique. So it just adds texture to a picture when you do cross-hatching. I don't know, I've always liked it. I like sketchy art. I don't like anything that's kind of too refined. Like the difference between sketching and like a line drawing. So sketching, you can be a little bit more unrestrained with it, I guess, whereas like a line drawing, so say if we were making up a circle out of sketching, this is probably too wide, let's start again, sorry. So we're making a circle out of sketching, it's just a series of small lines. I even like the sound of like sketching as well, it's just, yeah, ASMR. So yeah, the difference between sketching and line drawing is the technique. So for that, we've just kind of used minimal lines, you know. I mean, you could do kind of like 2 half circles to make a full one, but with the sketching, it's just kind of like a series of short dashes until you kind of build up a shape. One of my favourite illustrators as a child was Quentin Blake, who illustrated Roald Dahl's books. So yeah, I love that kind of messy looking artwork. Another principle in drawing is kind of the canvas setup. So it's kind of set up in a portrait mode. So all that means is it's a rectangle standing up. Does that make sense? Portrait. And then landscape. That's just kind of your drawing setup, I guess. So to make your visit to this video a bit more worthwhile, let's go a bit more ambitious. So let's bring up some reference shots. So the reference shot that I am bringing up right now, if you don't recognize it, for shame, for shame. It is, of course, the iconic Disney symbol Mickey Mouse silhouette. And I actually learned how to draw by tracing like Mickey Mouse, Bugs Bunny, a load of like cartoon characters when I was younger, until I memorized the forms to mind and I could draw without tracing. I would recommend that if you're kind of uncomfortable drawing from a reference shot. But yeah, it's that basic technique of identifying shapes in the world around you. So taking the Disney logo, it's just a series of 3 circles, and there you go, that's the iconic Disney symbol. Just fill it out, yeah, and if we were to go around that, just bring it out. So reference shots and tracing are great techniques to use in bettering your drawing. On my laptop I've got a reference shot of Steamboat Willy Mickey Mouse, the iconic Steamboat Willy Mickey Mouse. I'm just looking at this picture, we can identify that it is actually landscape. What I'll tell you now, in using reference shots, you can use like an invisible grid. Using a grid on a reference shot, you can use a 9 box grid to help break up a reference shot. You can use this in the world around you as well, but let's just stick with the reference shot. You can add as many rows and columns as you want to help break down the picture. If I were to lay a grid over that, just stick to a 9 grid. I hope you can see this. So a 9 grid. So breaking down the background, yeah, I think that's the edge of the boat just there, so I don't think that it's kind of in the top. Yeah, it's in the top 2 rows, I'd say. And then just basic line drawing. I do prefer sketching, but when doing lines, I just kind of work better. When doing straight lines, they're not really straight. And then we've got this live ring, I think, which kind of falls out of frame. So, well, out of the reference shot. And it's basically circle shape, and then a little bit of rope. And yeah, so Mickey himself kind of, he is center, but he kind of teeters on the edge of the left and right framing, left and right of the grid, sorry. So let's just measure out where his head would be. So it's actually below that bar, isn't it? And it does kind of fall into the right side of the grid. And then his ear, again, it's kind of right of the grid, isn't it? His hat, it's more of an angle actually. That's a bit thinner than that. With some basic circular shapes, two of them if you can see that. And that's just, so his hat is kind of cylindrical. It falls just behind that line of his head there, and there's a little peak on his hat, and we can actually see his left ear just behind. So we'll go back over in a black pen just so I can define all of that after. His head is actually circular. I know it's got kind of this ellipse shape for his nose. So let's just kind of pinpoint where that falls. I think it's just below the first grid line. So that's not too bad angle-wise. Yeah, and I mean his eyes, that's why I kind of like the older version of Mickey Mouse. He's very simplistic, but I find it kind of holds more character. I don't know, it just looks a bit more cheeky than the more wholesome Disney version now. Yeah, so I'm just kind of following his face around. He's got a little dimple there. That's what I mean. He's got quite a cheeky face, to be honest. And okay, so that is your maxilla. Or your mandible even? No, your mandible is your jaw. Maxilla is that part of your skull. It's the top lip, isn't it? I'm just sounding really fancy, and I'm not. So we'll go in afterwards and just kind of fill where it's all dark. But yeah, you can kind of see it taking shape. So that's why grids kind of help. It breaks it down, it breaks down like a large piece of, well, a large reference shot, especially like a busy reference shot like this. So his shoulder actually falls just below that curve of his mouth. So let's just make that round there. So, I mean, that shoulder could actually, if you wanted to map it out, you'll have to forgive me if my words aren't coming out. I think Mercury retrograde is really getting to me. I'm a little bit more articulate than this, I hope. So yeah, his little cheeky hip is round, and it kind of falls just in line with that ear. So if we were to bring that center point of that ear down, that's kind of where his little butt comes out. So And his actual body is kind of almost pear-shaped. So it's like a large circle and a tiny circle for that bit of his chest there. And if you were to follow that around, it's almost like a bit of a snowman shape, to be honest. Bit of a square for that. They were dungarees, weren't they, that he wore? He hasn't got any braces, so they're kind of like half dungarees. And let's just bring that line around. He's got two circles where the buttons would be. And bring that leg down, so that leg is at a curve. And oh no, it's not, it's actually straight. Maybe that's just my eyes. I'm just seeing things now. And this is a little boot. So breaking down that boot, you've got a rhombus in there. So that's the sole of the boot. And it just angles out. And then top part of his boot is a bit round. So, I mean, that could pass as a rounded rectangle, I guess. And then you've got like where his little I don't know what the name of that is. Where his little foot goes in. Don't know. And let's just round that off because he's actually lifting his foot, isn't he? And then he's got one leg balancing him out, outstretched and balancing him out that way. And that does fall more or less centre of the drawing. I think the angle's too sharp and that, so that's what I mean about sketching, you know, that's why I like it. You kind of lay down lines. It's always good to lay them down light. I'm very heavy-handed, I think, when it comes to sketching. But if it doesn't look right, just move the line until it looks right. Yeah, let's just do his little boot. Now I think his leg is actually too long there, so let's just bring that back up. Otherwise his little boot is going to fall out of frame, and we are trying to draw from reference, that's kind of the thing, but we can use that for the base of his foot, his heel. Yeah, so that steering wheel kind of falls on that the left line of the grid, just there. Well, the left column of the grid. So we'll just sketch out the actual shape of it. So it's kind of two ellipses with straight lines, kind of add that 3D look to it. And then it's got spokes like that, and another spoke. So that top spoke is actually more round than the other ones. Thicker actually, which is odd, as it's in the background, so that should actually be a little bit skinnier than the ones in the foreground. So I'm not going to tweak the drawing, I'm not going to like point out what's wrong with it, but just from my observations, yeah. Anything that's far away should be a lot smaller than what's in the foreground. So, and that wheel is so chunky. Wow. And there's another little bit there to make it look 3D and nice. And we'll just map out where the inner spokes are. So there's another ellipse there. We'll just drag out those lines, round them off. And inner spoke there, and an inner spoke there, and an inner spoke there. So there's 5 spokes. And weirdly there's 6 like handles, I guess. And that's it. One there. And then the other one he's actually holding. So what we'll do is just draw a circle there to signify his hand. His other hand isn't really holding anything. If we were to break that picture, if we were to make it a bit more realistic, he's not really holding anything. There's a little bit of a thumb there, just kind of peeking out. But yeah, the other one. Now, just looking at that, I think the wheel is too far away, or his head is really small. But we can work with that, you know. Sketching doesn't have to be exact. So yeah, just looking at that, we've kind of sketched out the basics. So if we were to add where the floor is, we'd just drag a line from that. Yeah, it kind of does fall behind there, so we'd just drag a line like that. And yeah, just put some basic lines for the background. So that's the use of a grid. That's why it helps kind of map out your drawing. It just makes it a little easier. It breaks it all down into smaller sections. Now we've sketched in pencil. If you wanted to, you were happy with the sketch, you can use a black pen or even a biro just to kind of go over those lines. That's probably too thin. Have I got a thicker one? That's a little bit thicker. But just work with the supplies that you've got. Basics, you know, pen, pencil even, sorry. Pencil, paper, that will do you. And yeah, just go around there. I do think there's a bit of a definition to his mouth as well. So it's just a line, kind of an M shape there. So just there, so. Because I just realised I'm blocking the picture, so that's great. And you've probably seen absolutely nothing. Now we just go over the lines that we're happy with. So a bit less frantic than the sketch lines. A bit more defined, I guess that's the word I was looking for. And yeah, it just helps to bring a bit more definition to a sketch using a pen or something to go over the lines. I won't do the whole thing, but like we'll just do his eyes to bring in character. Oh yeah, his nose. And his iconic little yeah, that's his ear, isn't it? Yeah, so I mean that is a basic Mickey Mouse. It's not exact. I am drawing at an angle, so it's kind of hard. No excuses. A carpenter's only as good as his tools. A good carpenter never blames his tools. That was it. That was one of the great sayings my woodwork teacher used to say. Yeah, that's basic 101 drawing. So recap on drawing 101. Obviously pencil, paper, first and foremost. So we started with shapes, so circles, rectangles, squares, triangles. Those are the primary shapes in everything around you. The difference between sketching and line drawing, obviously to start off with, I'd recommend sketching. It just gets you used to putting that pencil to paper. Identifying when something is portrait or landscape, and the use of grids. You can have as many rows and columns in a grid, whatever you feel comfortable in breaking up a picture. I always find it great and a lot simpler to use a 9-box grid. So hopefully that removed the daunting aspect of drawing. Everyone has to start somewhere. Art at the end of the day is a craft, you know. The more you do, over time, you will get better, guaranteed. And like most things. If you found that helpful, if you're looking forward to seeing what I come out with next in the how to draw tutorial series, please do subscribe, guys, girls, non-binds. Next Thursday, so January 27th, haha, I shall be releasing this, my second animated short film, A Curious Night. It is based on Lewis Carroll, and yeah, we actually share the same birthday, so I'm putting it out on the 27th of January, which is both of our birthdays. To pay homage to him and to yeah, stress myself for my birthday, why not? That's it, guys, girls, no minds. Stay classy, be kind, and have fun drawing, you know. That's it, bye. Yeah. I'm drawing 101s. 101's a thing, I don't know. Now it is. They've got all kinds of paper outside, outside these walls. No, that looks like a newer version of him. Because I'm such a geek and I know these things.